Hey YouTube, Gordon Miller here. So we've got a bunch of different things we're going to do today. So this is the last day of 2019. I am glad to see 2019 in the rear view mirror. That'll be a lot of fun. So anyway, I'm waiting here for my wife, who's about to go to one of her doctor's appointments, and so I thought I would fill in the gaps in some ways about my wife. Some of you have asked how I met my wife. So I met my wife back in 1998 in March, and we actually met online, which is kind of hard to do back then because the internet really had not come around. None of the online apps were there, but I was working with the folks in Singapore that we were working with in a middle school project with one of the middle schools in Blacksburg, and we were going to do video conferencing, and Skype didn't exist in those days, so we had to do an IP tunnel to create the connections between the two locations, and it was complex and required a lot of trial and error and things like that. So we were trying to figure it all out, and the servers that we used to communicate back and forth via chat were the Internet Relay Chat, the IRC servers that Microsoft had. Well, the most popular server, the one with the most servers behind it, was the singles chat server. And so you could go into the chat server, you just pick a username. You didn't have a login, there were no passwords. You just pick a username and log in. Most people picked, a unique username, and as long as nobody was using it, that's fine. So anyway, I was doing my work, and I had created a separate chat room that was private, that was just me and the folks from Singapore, and we were going through the process of setting up the connection. And I'd actually worked all night. I would worked from about midnight our time till about 8 a.m. My time, and it was getting late. The server all of a sudden started getting really busy, and I could see the chat room server traffic in the back of mine. I had one window that I was looking in, and then the window that had the background traffic in it, and it started scrolling faster and faster and faster. And I knew from previous experiences working with the folks in Singapore that as soon as the traffic got very high in the US, it would start creating a delay, that once the delay got to 2 minutes from me typing something and them getting it and giving a response, I knew that 2-minute window was going to cause the connection to time out, and I was going to lose my connection. We were almost done. We'd worked all night, and we had to get this connection done later that week. And so I was so close, and then all of a sudden I broke my connection to Singapore, and I was pissed. So I looked back in the traffic and realized that somebody had logged in with this name that I was familiar with from somebody who had hung out. It was actually the username for somebody who was famous for meeting men in Las Vegas and things like that. So, obviously it got the attention of all the guys in the room. Well, come to find out, it actually wasn't her, it was somebody else. Soon to find out it was my future wife. But it was her first time logging in. She picked a username at random. It just happened to be the same username as this other person, and she had no idea what she was doing. She had never used the chat room before or anything like that. And so she was trying to figure it out. People were whispering to her, and she was responding to comments, out loud and things like that. So it was really a mess. And so I realized that, it was not going to end well for her, and so I set up a private chat room and invited her in, and she accepted. And so first of all, I started yelling at her because I'd lost my connection. I was like, look, I spent all damn night working on this thing, and then you show up and and mess this whole thing up. What the hell, And so she's like, oh, I'm sorry, it's my first time logging in, and things like that. And so I was like, okay. Well, I looked at her profile, no picture. Back then you had to have a digital camera or a scanner or something like that. I had pictures because I ran a lab that that had those kind of things. So anyway, I did the IP trace to figure out where she was, and she said she was in Pittsburgh, but actually the IP traced back to a school in Mississippi. She was at Mississippi Valley State University, a historically black college and university, and she was doing career counseling there with the students. But that's not what she told me. She told me something else. But Anyway, so I looked at her profile, and there was no picture. She had a picture of me, and I was a lot better looking back in those days because I was 31, or I was 33. She was 31, and but anyway, so I looked at her profile, and even though it had no picture, her profile said 5'2", 110 pounds. Brown hair, green eyes. And I was like, well, I can work with this. And so I asked her if her profile was accurate and what she was doing. And we chatted back and forth for about 8 hours, from 8 o'clock until, from 8 a.m. till about 4 p.m. And a storm actually knocked my connection out because we were using 56K modems. She was at a university, so she was using a direct connection to the Ethernet or to the internet via her university at her university computer. She got nothing done all day. I got nothing done. I called my office from my cell phone and told them I wasn't coming in, to cancel all the meetings, and when people showed up, just to reschedule them. And so I chatted with her all day until about 4 o'clock when I got knocked off. And so I gave her my name, my address, my phone number, my email address, everything. And so we finally got disconnected. And so I didn't have any idea who she was, really. I mean, I had a first name. She gave me the name of Lisa, not her name. Her real name is Kisa, like Lisa, only with a K. It's Russian. It means kitten. So, the issue that I had was one of this. Well, I have her IP address. I traced it back to the Career Counseling Center. I looked on the university's website, and I found that there were 5 people that worked there. The only one without a picture was hers, and so no picture of her. But I got her name, and so I looked up her home address and her home phone number and everything else. And I waited a day or two, and she didn't call back and things like that. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to call her. I was like, it's funny. I even started dialing the number. I remember, like, doot, 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 doot. Shit, don't do that. That's like such, internet creepster type, activity. Don't be stalking her. If she's going to call, she'll call back. And so sure enough, about a day later, so about 3 days after we met, she called back. And so we met on the 3rd of March, and I think she contacted me on like the 6th. And I was actually heading up to DC for a meeting, and then I had the rest of that next week off because it was spring break at Virginia Tech, and it was also spring break at her university at Mississippi Valley State University. So she was off, and so she hadn't seen her parents in a while, and so I was like, hey, how about this? How about I drive from DC to Itta, Mississippi? It's over 1,000 miles. It took 12 to 14 hours. And, I'll take you to see your parents, and, we'll hang out and see how it goes, and we'll go from there. So she's like, yeah, sure. So I drove down there and talking to her about every hour, and, continued to call and touch base. And I got there, and, I opened up, she opened up the door, and I said, grab your shit, let's go. And so she's like, okay. And so she grabbed her 2 bags and hopped in the car, and we started driving back. And, we made a little ways and stopped for the night. And then we made it a little further. It was late when I picked her up. And we made it back to Nashville, to the Hermitage Hotel the next night. And that's really when we had time we got there about 6 o'clock, and we had dinner, and we really got a chance. So we enjoyed all of our time in the car, getting to know each other and things like that. But spending 6-8 hours in the car, a day, takes its kind of takes its toll. So we were glad to check into the hotel and have dinner and things like that. And, we just enjoyed spending time together, and we overstayed our welcome at the Hermitage. They had checkout time of 11 o'clock. They finally had security chase us out, I think around 2 o'clock, since we refused to check out from the suite that we had. But we were enjoying our time together, and it was a lot of fun. We ordered pancakes, probably the best pancakes I've ever had. Probably had nothing to do with the quality of the pancakes, but So anyway, we hung out for that week. I went to see her parents, and her parents were kind of shocked. I got back to Blacksburg, and I actually called my family and everybody I knew and said, I'm getting married. And they're like, getting married? We didn't know you were dating anybody. Like, yeah, well, when it's right, it's right. So we've been together 22 years, and she never went back. We're actually officially still on our first date together. We had a coworker of hers. We called him up, and she quit her job, and she had them pack up all of her stuff and shipped it UPS to her. And she's been with me ever since. So before we had kids, she used to travel with me on all of my government contract travels and everything. So it was great. So so that's how I met my wife. And it's one of those kind of great things where she's been my best friend, and we've had 22 great years together, 3 wonderful kids. And but that's the story of how I met my wife. And so for all of those of you with idle curiosity, that's the story. And next, we'll cover another story about my wife. Thanks.